think just being in the journey, like being able to be flexible and not take it too seriously in a way. I think a lot of PhD students get really, really wrapped up in their work. And as you should be passionate and you should be excited and you should be engaged and you should love what you're doing. But I really encourage folks to not make the PhD work their entire PhD life, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. That is the premise of this channel, is to help students not make their higher education journeys their lives, and for them to realize that they have other aspects of them that they can pay attention to, develop, tend to, whatever, even as a student. I would love to hear how you spent your, because that was your last year that you spent where you didn't have an actual apartment.
Yes. I had quite a unique living situation. So I started out living in a townhouse with 2 other roommates. Had my own bedroom, own bathroom, and I was in the basement, which was kind of nice because I had my own space. And the other 2 of them were on the top floor, and our middle floor kind of had our living room, kitchen. They were both master's students who were doing like 5 years at Penn State. So they were master's students, but kind of undergrads. But they were great because they had boyfriends in other cities and family in other cities. They were gone most weekends. So I did have the place to myself quite a bit that first year of living. And then the second year, I actually lived with a woman in my cohort and her, at the time, boyfriend, who turned into her fiance while they were living with me. That was actually probably my favorite year living with roommates because it was more family style. We'd have family style dinners on Sundays. So we'd take turns cooking, and like, then we got into Game of Thrones. So like we'd watch an episode with dinner most nights, like whenever we could all take a break from work and whatnot. So I really, really enjoyed my second year of living with roommates. And then the third year, I got random roommates. I'd specifically put on there no undergrads. They were undergrads, which like at the time, like I'm almost 30. And then when you're put with 18-year-olds, like you're just in such different parts of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to be like, what's the word? I tried to be understanding of like, I was 18 once. I understand they're in a different place in life. But it was like dishes were in the sink growing mold on them. Like, they had a completely different sleep schedule. So I'd be waking up at 6 and they'd still be awake from the night before.
Oh, wow.
And it would be okay if they weren't like at the kitchen table, which was right on top of my bed in my bedroom. So I could hear every movement they made. So I wasn't sleeping. And so it just turned into a thing where like, it was like by November, December, and they both smoked cigarettes, which would have been fine. But then that smell, it kind of just lingers on everything. And so I was like, this has to end. So in December, I ended up moving out of there and essentially putting most of my stuff in storage. So that was December of all the years are blending together now. But 2018, so almost 2 years ago. And so I put my stuff in storage and then lived what I call the quote unquote nomad life for a while. So other people were like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you live like that. But for me, it was like worth not paying rent for a little. And I'll get into this later, but I was just able to do so much with that extra money and just, I don't know, live all the things that I wanted to do that like growing up with not a ton of extra financial resources, I hadn't been able to do. And so put my stuff in storage. I was lucky enough to be able to live with, so I have an aunt in New Jersey. So some weekends I would go there. And then during the week, I had a really good friend in State College who had 2 kids and a family. And so she had a guest room that was just empty and was like, you are welcome to stay with us. I was like, really? So I just started living with them, and I wasn't sure how I was going to work out at first, but that actually ended up being one of my favorite periods of time. Like those like 6 to 8 months I lived with them. They had 2 young kids. I became super close to them. I was going to baseball games, practicing piano with them. And it was kind of like a bartering type situation. So like I would babysit whenever they needed me to, watch the kids whenever they needed me to, which I love doing, help with dishes, help with dinner, and then just live there. And so it's not a typical situation, but it ended up working out.
It sounds like a very ideal situation, honestly. Like I was just talking to another graduate student who has kids of her own, and she's a single mother. And so what she ended up doing was finding, she had a 2 or multiple bedroom home and she had an extra room. And so she offered someone basically what you got. She was just like, you know, if you watch my kids, you can stay here for free.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So it was like a combination of having that flexible time and having that extra income now. Like I said, you don't make a ton on a graduate stipend, but it was enough that like if you're not paying for a living, like you said, that's half your check. So I was able to save a little bit of that and then also travel quite a bit. So I took advantage of any flight deal I saw, Travel Zoo, any of those apps that send you those deals. And then I did a bunch of travels. So I went to an international yoga festival in Rishikesh, India. The yoga studio I was really involved in State College was going, and the instructor always taught up there and was like, oh, would you like to join us? I was like, sure, this sounds awesome. Like I've always wanted to do something like this. So that was an awesome experience at that yoga festival. There's people there from, I think, 101 different countries, so almost half the world. So just
Wow.
getting to talk to so many different like groups of people and learn about different cultures and countries and learn all about different types of yoga I had never heard about before.
How did that fit in? So how did like your ability to travel and move around fit in with your GA? Like, did your GA not require you to be in a particular space at a particular time? Were you just able to do it online?
Yeah, so for that particular trip, that was mainly over spring break. So the timing worked out really well for that one. And then between my first year and second year summer, I was able to do most of my GA work remotely and be able to work online. So that summer, that first year, I did work, but I did spend like a month in Austin, a month in California. I happened to be in California at the right time, and my cousin had an extra ticket to Hamilton. So then I ended up seeing Hamilton live. And then my uncle surprised us with NBA Finals tickets. So I ended up going to see like the Warriors win the whole NBA Finals. So like I had like moments where it was like the right place at the right time too. My mom's family is from England. And so that's the only time I get to see my grandparents is in the summer. So I do try to make it a priority to go to England most summers. So I already had a trip scheduled to England that summer, and then my advisor had a research project in Switzerland that someone backed out of like literally the week before. And so I'm already in England and I get a text that was like, any chance you can be in Switzerland in a couple days? I was like, sure. Like, it's a $200-300 flight from there that they were going to reimburse. And it's like a 1.5, 2 hour flight from England to Switzerland. So I hopped on a plane and then ended up in Switzerland doing
That
some
is
research.
definitely being at the right place at the right time.
Yep. And I feel like that's kind of how a lot of these trips or these cool things kind of worked out. It's just like being able to go with the flow and be in the moment, and the opportunity comes at the right time. Um, so I was there for, it was a science research trip. It was called CCAM. It was for really specific type of engineering that certain students were doing that we were doing an evaluation for. And Switzerland was awesome. And then I came back and did my second year, which was also a lot of coursework. Second year was a little more difficult academically, and just kind of figuring out like the milestones that are required for the PhD program. dissertation topics. So I feel like that second year really focused a little more on school. I did go to Thailand over Thanksgiving break because the good thing about Penn State is we have a week off for Thanksgiving. And life hack, it's super expensive to travel within the US at Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is a domestic holiday, but it's not an international holiday. And so we found a flight deal that was $500 round trip from Newark to Bangkok and back. And so we just did it, like me and some
Wow,
of my
that
master's
is
friends.
pretty cool. I really want to emphasize that you were able to do all these different traveling ventures because you just so happened to be in the right place at the right time. And which a part of me is kind of like, I mean, you know, you decided to take that initial trip to begin with. And so, like, I think about, like, if I never go anywhere, then I'll never get those random opportunities.
True.
Versus the more that I put myself out there, the more that I participate in things, the more likely I am to stumble upon random opportunities.
That's a really great point. Yep. The more you put yourself out there, the more you open yourself up to being available when these opportunities arise. But I think like, I think, and I don't know, advice I guess I would have for people looking into PhD programs or in PhD programs right now is like, I think there's this common misconception of like your life has to stop when you start a PhD program. And so now your whole life just has to be about grad school and PhD life. And I think honestly, like having these travels to look forward to or having these things outside of PhD life motivated me to work harder and to get my work done in PhD life because I was like, okay, like I'm going to Thailand next weekend. So like I need to get all of my work done prior to. I'm also really efficient at working on airplanes, at airports. I actually get my best work done because on an airplane, there's no internet, there's no social media, there's no phone calls, no text messages. So when you're traveling for like 20 hours, it's like, let me knock out some of this work. And I mean, we all only have the same 24 hours in a day. So I was just reflecting on this the other day. I did not watch TV in grad school. Besides that year with Game of Thrones where we'd watch an episode here or there, I did not watch any TV. And so now that I'm thinking about it and I'm like back in a working professional role and like in the evenings, most people like turn on the TV. I'm like, this is new for me to like just sit in front of the TV and watch a show. I think I just valued so much more being able to hang out with people or being able to have new experiences. So I just never did that. I also didn't buy a lot of material things. Like I would literally be like, do I need that new shirt? Or would I rather like hang out at an elephant sanctuary in Thailand? Like, and so it was like those kind of like, I'm still on a budget. I can't do everything. And I think that's also in line with, like I said before I started grad school, like mental health was a huge thing that I was like, okay, like how do I get to a place where I'm more like consistently calm and happy and not feeling like these ups and downs and anxiety and depression and whatever it is. And so in some of that like strive or yearning for a more I guess like consistently joyful life,
Yeah,
a lot of,
stability.
that's the word, stability too, yes. I've realized that like you buy something and you feel joy for maybe like a couple minutes the first time you wear that thing, the first time. um I don't know, with things it's so fleeting, whereas like with experiences, like I'm excited again telling you about my experience when I went to Thailand. Like it's something that like stays within you and lives within you, and it changed for me. It like really changes the way like I view the world, I view cultures, I experience life, and the joy from those trips just keep giving. And so I think that's something I've consciously tried to be aware of too in life is like where am I spending my time? Where am I spending my money? And is it bringing me joy?